and good evening. This is Kaylin broadcasting for Happyland Gummy Bears, a NFT social club focused on the wellness and development of you, our community. Join us in pursuit of Happyland as we talk about topics relating to our physical and mental health, our wealth, and whatever else our community finds interesting. This is another episode of Happyland in Session. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Happyland in Session. My name is Caleb, and welcome back to another show. This one's going to be a good one. It's going to be based upon wellness in terms of motivation and habit forming, right? We are back today with Enrico, one of our wellness coaches, for another talk regarding motivation and fitness. And we're going to be going over exactly how to harness the power of routine, right, and benefit from actually consistently, trying towards our goals. And this goal can expand to whatever it may be. It doesn't matter the goal, just a consistent path towards it is going to basically get us there in the end, right? Because everything is, as big as a goal may be, we can split it to many different pieces, right, and get there one step at a time. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce back, welcome back to the show, my guest, Enrico. I mean, where is he? There he is. Oh, hi. I guess,
Hello.
yeah, I should be here too, right? Oh, no.
Right.
Hi.
There
Well,
we
hi.
go.
There
There
you are.
it is.
Welcome back, Enrico. So the
Thank
man that
you.
needs no introduction, but in case this is the first time that you're seeing him on the screen, Enrico is a owner and operator, CEO of Refined Muscles, which is a fitness coaching outfit out in New York City and in the Upper East Side. So if anybody is ever around there in that area, he can be
Yeah,
found
swing on
there.
by.
Yep, exactly. And yeah, so welcome back on the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Doing well, doing well. Been a long day.
Yeah, it's the end of the day. So just so you guys know, Enrico, after a whole day of like just working and picking things up and putting things down, he then spends the time to come and grace us with a bit of knowledge. So I really appreciate you for doing that, Enrico, and thank you for always being a part of our community.
Hey, this is one of the
And
better parts of the
congratulations, by the
job.
way. Enrico just won our monthly community raffle. So in our community, we have our Happyland Gummy Bear community. We have a raffle that runs every month, and so you kind of get extra points. You earn these coins by just checking in every day with the community and saying hello, or like
I wanted that
participating.
bear, so
Yep, and participating in our like daily topics and whatnot. Just basically any interaction with the community will usually net you some coins, and then you can buy raffle tickets for it, right? And Enrico here has been submitting raffle tickets like a mad person, and I am very,
yeah.
very, I wasn't, for all fairness, I was not the one who pulled the winning ticket, so I had nothing to do with it. Okay, there was a bit of
Yeah.
a,
And to be
of,
fair, as soon as I got the notification, I was like, hey, is this real?
yeah, no, I did not pick your name out of a hat. It was fair and square, done by one
Yeah,
of our community builders, Shin, who we're very appreciative of.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I hope, I know you've been doing the dailies, but I hope you do end up checking out some of the games and some of the events that we have. And yeah, welcome you to our
I mean, to
community,
be fair, Discord was the challenge in of itself for me. So, at
Yeah,
least I got
yeah.
there.
And that happens to a lot of people actually. We actually end up introducing Discord to a whole bunch of people because they haven't used it before. I think in the beginning it was used for like a lot of gaming and things like that.
Right.
But really as a company, they're slowly moving and encroaching. They saw the success of like Clubhouse and now they're like all up on it. So it's really more basic communities. And the entire NFT community and a lot of the crypto community is actually built around Discord. So I'm very happy to welcome you onto that platform and
Hey,
get
you
you
tried to
into
get me on there for gaming, and I was like, nope, not
yeah,
gonna be
yeah,
here for
that's
that.
how it gets started, but it's definitely grown a lot bigger than that.
Yeah,
But anyway, not to ramble on and on, so today you're here to tell us or to walk us through some concepts, regarding the power, as I was saying, the power of consistency and about forming the right habits, right? So yeah,
yeah,
so
and
I'd like to give you the floor on it.
yeah. So no, I mean, as you had mentioned before, today we're going to be taking a slightly different approach on this, as opposed to just focusing on the fitness aspect of these things. Especially as I workshop some of these ideas with the client, with my clients as I talk to them, they're, as they're working out. They're like, a lot of the stuff that you talk about is well beyond the scope of just fitness. So it probably makes sense, especially with this, to look not just through the lens of the pursuit of fitness goals, but goals in general.
Well, I mean, the last time with the last conversation we had about, like the myth of motivation, and I know we were talking about it within the fitness concept, right? Of course, of which you are a pro at. But at the end of the day, I found that exactly, I agree with your clients is that like the little droplets, the nuggets of knowledge that you were dropping were like, I almost felt like it was like wasted to constrain it within just fitness, right? Because that was so applicable to just life in general, and so, yeah, welcome
So
to
I
change.
think one of the most interesting intersecting points for us, especially within this space that we're talking about, being within the crypto space, within the NFT space, one of the drawing factors can be this volatility of the market, right? And it can represent some very interesting opportunities for growth. However, when it comes to when you're trying to pursue a goal, trying to achieve a thing that's outside of uh, financial investments, usually you want to minimize that volatility in your output, because at the end of the day, some of the more drastic things that people can take a look at or may consider to get where they want to get to might be unsustainable, overreaching, and then ultimately can go down the road of harm and things like that. One of the things that we like to make sure our clients know is that we aren't here to hurt them, right? Like,
Hmm.
if someone wants to deal with a weight loss goal, but they're already medically dangerously thin, then there's a big conversation, and maybe we're not the best trainers for that person either. So with that being said, you know, we take a very habit-based approach with fitness goals, but if you apply those same principles to any other goal setting exercise, really think that would go a long way. And I think it's important to define what habits are, right? Because I'm going to throw around that term quite a bunch. And
Well, actually, no, sorry, I'm off
yeah,
camera here.
no,
Before you started, I wanted to ask you this question, right? In
sure.
this regards to, why people should listen to, to what we're about to talk about, right? Just give a little bit of a preview, right? In terms of like why you should care, right? Because when I say something like, oh yeah, we're gonna talk about the power of consistency and habit building and how that's gonna reach your goals, it kind of seems very like obvious, you know what I mean? Like we can say that with one sentence, hey Enrico, consistently work on your little steps and you'll get there at the end. Seems to be very like, like duh type of like, of a assumption, right? Of like if A then B. So what, if you can give like a short like summary, right? Executive summary, like what do you hope to provide in terms of like perspective towards that, in terms of the rest of the show, right? I hope that
I
question makes
think,
sense.
yeah, I think it makes sense. The crux of this conversation is going to be trying to answer, how do you go about setting those habits and setting your environment up for success?
Hmm.
Because yeah, sure, it's easy to be like, oh, hey, take these small steps. How small? Like, how small are we talking? Or, like, why not just go big or go home? Right?
Uh-huh.
That's a constant thing that gets pushed down our throats through media and all that stuff. So
So
what I'm talking
is
about
it
is
fair
in
to say
stark
that you
contrast to
wanna
that,
you wanna
honestly.
help people like kind of define what those small steps are in terms of maintain consistency? Is that a
Yeah,
fair thing to
right?
say?
Because
Uh-huh.
like functionally, even from a strength perspective, right, which I think is a pretty good an analogy, would be that the more concrete the foundation you build from, the higher you can reach with your successes, right? So if you rush through the beginning stages, you don't set up your habits, you don't set up the infrastructure for success, and you get solely focused on the outcome, you might get there, but you might also crash and burn from not being able to absorb the volatility of what life throws at you, right? Life inherently is filled with ups and downs, and the habits that you build to support your goal set are going to help you or are going to help keep you from completely falling off the wagon, like just completely stopping altogether.
Right.
So, and that brings me to this interesting point. There's an author named James Clear. He wrote this book called Atomic Habits, and I think the most poignant line. I mean, it's a great book, but one of the more poignant lines in there is that you don't rise to the level of your goals, rather you fall to the level of your systems. And within this conversation, those systems are your habits. They're the processes, and like what I was mentioning, like having a definition for habits, they're the actions that you choose to build consistently into your life, and hopefully they eventually become automatic, right? Where there's little to no friction for your accomplishment of that, and then you can pursue your goal like near effortlessly. Obviously, that's relative to
Right, nothing's
the
effortless, you know. But if
yeah,
I may just reframe that, right? So
sure.
basically what you're saying, you know, I love that line, by the way. So I have actually read a good portion of the book. Unfortunately, did
Mm.
not finish it. I
Usually, you get
loved
too
it.
inspired by at some point.
I was inspired by chapter 3, so I was done
So
after
the
that,
book
you
did
know.
its job.
um, but the idea is that I do remember reading that line, and that is a very profound, you know, quote. So I just want to reiterate that again, you know, just to push that home, which is that so he's saying is that, you know, it doesn't matter your day-to-day motivation, right? If you set aside a process, a system that you follow, you know, so long as you have a strong system. Like if your system is I wake up every morning and I, you know, like whatever, for me, let's say it's a fitness goal. I wake up every morning and I don't eat breakfast because I need to skip that meal, you know, and that's my system. So long, and if I set it up in a way that I set it and forget it, like I just wake up and don't eat breakfast, that's always going to be the truth of my, at least my plan, right? Then it's a lot easier. Even if I wake up one day and I'm feeling particularly hungry, I just have a set of rules that I can fall back on and be like, I've been doing this for like, you know, who knows how long,
Well,
and that
also
kind
your
of.
systems give you that backbone of
Mhm.
support for when life gets super chaotic and
Hey,
you
there's no
have to
time to
use
plan.
like
Yeah.
your mental bandwidth has to go in other directions.
Hmm.
So, like, does that mean everything else goes to hell? No, of course not. Like, but if you don't have that plan preset, uh,
Yeah.
you
It's a
know,
lot easier for it to go to hell, right? Like that's what
yeah,
you're
you're
saying.
just
Yeah, yeah.
gonna
Fall
you'll
down the wayside.
speaking for myself, I can say that in those moments when like the backup systems weren't in place in a particular day, or like things really went off the rails, you can really start, or rather, I have really felt like there are times where it's just like I'm treading water, right? And it's
Right.
okay. Am I going to get through this? Am I not? I don't. Who knows, right? But
Hmm.
when you have those habits built in, it becomes that much easier to fall back on them, rely on them, find some solace in your day and amidst the chaos, right? Um,
Yeah, that might even give you a more accomplished feeling, right? Where
yeah,
you kind of have like set goals that you wanted to reach every day, and you just hit those every day. Kind of gives you like a ability to give yourself that check mark, right?
yeah. It's kind of like hitting your dailies in whatever random video game you're choosing to play, especially in the mobile game setting. But with that though, these daily habits, I know there are tons of things trying to gamify it, but at the end of the day, it's very it's going to be challenging, and we're going to get into this a little bit later with what that challenge may be actually. But just to break away real quick on why it's important too, I think in like I mentioned, the media and like society as a whole romanticizes this idea of excessively hard work is how you get there, which is all well and fine and good. Obviously hard work is necessary to do anything. It's not a guarantee for success, but it frankly is a key to it, right? Like it's very unlikely, barring huge luck factors that come into play, but it's very unlikely for someone to become successful without the requisite skills, hard work, and all that stuff that comes into play. So it's like nice to think that, especially I would say various goals like, oh, if you really wanted to lose weight, just get motivated and you can do it. You want to get strong, if you just tried, you'll get there, right? If you had the time, you could be the next Da Vinci, right? But in
Not
reality,
untrue. Not untrue.
it's like there's
Yeah.
that idea that you can get there if you just tried really hard.
Hmm.
But trying really hard isn't it's not the only thing that's going to get you there. And so setting up the environment for you to actually succeed will just help increase your chances to get there. And whenever you're starting something new, it's really exciting, and that'll give you some motivation to get there. However, that feeling of excitement tends to vanish before you make some meaningful headway
Yeah. Yeah.
into your goals, right?
Yeah.
Like at some point, it's like you could start off if you're sedentary, you'd be like, oh, I'm gonna go out run every day, and then the moment you're sore and your ankles start to hurt or what have you, it's like,
Hmm.
it's raining out. Mm, mm.
Yeah, or your daughter kept you up last night, so now you're feeling a little tired, or,
Yeah, and
work
now
has
to
been
be fair, with
terrible.
with certain physical stuff, you do have to pay attention to those things, right? If your knees aching like crazy, you got to know when to back off or when to be belligerent about it. But something more, let's say, something less physically intensive. Let's say, you're trying to learn an instrument, right? At first, you're like, oh, I'm going to practice 10 minutes every day, blah blah blah,
Hmm.
and then at some point, you're like, oh, I've practiced the same chord over and over again. I can't get it. Okay, well, what happens then, right? And those are moments where your habits really kick into play, where it's like, oh, well, if you can get to the point where you can go, oh, I'm gonna practice anyway. It doesn't. Today feels kind of shitty. Can I even squeeze it in? Well, it's it'll feel weird today if I don't, right?
Hmm.
It removes the excitement boredom dichotomy of the practice, right? So, oh,
We were
Joe,
talking
I,
about
I think you're
motivation.
frozen. Oh yeah, there you go. Oh, lost
Oh,
audio.
yeah, hello?
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
all right.
Man, we
Yeah,
still got technical issues going today.
yeah, right. Like, what's going on? But we were talking about, motivation and how it's not linear. You know what I mean? Like, there are going to be days that, it's going to be this rubber band effect, and so this is basically the catch-all for that, right? To solve this, hopefully the solution, right? And I can totally relate to that. I think everyone can relate to that. Having a very high motivation to start, and then going through that graph, where it's like the peak motivation, and then having that drop after when it's just
Yeah.
not as exciting as it were when you first started. You're like, hey, I'm gonna tackle all these problems, but then you get to a certain level, and all of a sudden these problems just seem to be like, oh, you start asking yourself, is it really worth it, and things like that, and this is like the time where you might quit before you actually, get to,
Yeah.
like you said, anywhere meaningful. So I think that definitely is a
This
broad.
circles back to like establishing those process goals and things like that, which
Hmm.
might really lend themselves to setting up your habits.
Hmm.
Um, but now, with that being said, some people might hear this and think to themselves that like, oh well, how do I get these habits? How do I know what the right habit is? So forth, and so on one hand, you can pay someone to develop a plan of action for you, which is frankly a big part of my job.
Right, like you're a fitness coach, but there's also life coaches and things like
Exactly.
that,
Business
to help you. Yeah.
mentors. And,
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of the big productivity, hyper productivity guys, they'll say, hey, if you don't know something and it costs you, it would cost you more than, less than $100, just go pay
Hmm.
for it.
Yeah, you
Just,
get it right away.
yeah, like pay, like if you want to learn Spanish, instead of, spend a little money on getting a quality tutor, and that'll probably take
Hmm.
you further than you just reading and practicing without any level of guidance. Now,
Hmm.
that might not be accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
And frankly, not everybody wants to deal with someone else. Some people very much enjoy the process of learning on their own. I'm not going to lie, I'm very much that way. Now,
Hmm.
granted, I have mentors in the fitness space, and there's people in the business world that I look up to, so forth and so on.
I mean, I feel like the habit of self-learning is, actually very important, to
True,
constantly,
yeah,
reinvent yourself
absolutely.
and try to, expand, your
Yeah.
horizons. So
And
that's not
fortunately,
bad advice.
I think I'm fortunate to be in a position where I don't need I can take a little seed of information and just rabbit hole, like just explode it out into a whole mess of things just from my experience of learning and my frequency of learning.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so and to be fair, I've been open to like business consultations and things like that to help my business grow. We always have conversations around how to improve our respective businesses. So doing it in a silo is the most challenging way to approach it, but it is still possible. And I would just posit that the first step has to actually be action, right? You have, like, once you decide that this is a goal set and this whole conversation is around, building habits, you can't wait to have the habits built before you even know what's going on, right? Um, like you're going to be creating a system around your goal set, but if you don't know what any of those moving parts are, there's no way you can set the habit. So
Hmm.
the first step is literally just try.
Yeah,
Right.
get yourself a
That's,
base knowledge to build
yeah,
upon. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
because I like saying this all the time. You don't know what you don't know,
Hmm.
right? And you can sit and try to ideate and theorize all you want, but at the end of the day, until you get your hands wet or your skin in the game or whatever metaphor for things are,
Hmm.
like you just have to get started. So, for example, if you're interested in learning guitar, the first thing you should do is go get yourself a guitar. If you're interested in losing weight or getting stronger, you should likely start exercising, right? Figure out where in your schedule your exercise can fit, so forth and so on. Or if you're interested in crypto, I mean, you can sit and read about crypto ad nauseum, and it's an infinitely deep rabbit hole at this point with regards to what content's out there. But you kind of have to get a wallet, right? um, so yeah, the first step I think that's really important is to actually make some action, right? Go through that, and then from there you go through a process of refinement of what your systems and habits are, right? Um, so I wrote out an example um, of like what are the next steps and things like that. Um, so after you've started going down the path, see what, like, because you're ultimately, if the habit was easy, you probably would have been doing it already, right? So inherently, they're either bad habits are going to need to break, or rather, let me not classify them as bad. More so, habits not conducive to your current goal set, or you might need to integrate new habits that are in line with the goal that you're trying to achieve.
Hmm.
So, you know, um, you're gonna have to take a pretty hard look at your life and see what you're willing to change, what you're willing to give up. We've talked about that in the past streams too, because those choices are often uncomfortable, and that makes new habit creation a big challenge, right? Now, to kind of ease your way through that process is that refinement that I was alluding to, where um, you take a look at, instead. So things are going to get hard. Instead of throwing your hands up and going, this is too hard, I can't do it. I would really urge you to take a look at where the pain points were, and see if you can navigate around the pain points, whether it's reducing the friction of you doing what you're supposed to do in terms of a positive habit, or making it harder to do the old habits that you need to break. Um,
So,
here,
so
yeah,
basically, what you're asking for is a self-awareness, self-reflection, right?
yeah,
And kind of giving yourself the opportunity to look over, yeah, I failed today, you know what I mean? But this is the reason why I failed. And then your idea, your your call for refinement is really just to take a look at those failures and then to post new safeguards and new
So
workarounds.
here's some like two I think interesting stories that highlight this. One, personally speaking, right? Um, I can, especially in times of like heavy stress or where I have to be even writing a lot, less writing, more like huge social interactions. I get into like snacking becomes real easy for me,
Hmm.
right? Uh, but at the same time, I'm a fitnessy guy, so I have to kind of look a certain way. So I had a discussion with my wife where I was like, "Hey," as we were reorganizing the kitchen, I was like, "You know what? One of the hard parts for me here is like our snacks are so accessible. I was
Hmm.
like, how about we just, I'm not gonna say don't buy the snacks. Let's just put them a
That's
little
funny.
higher,
Yeah. So
right?
you have to do a pull up, before you can get access.
Well, I don't know that my things will support that, but I do have to grab a little stool,
uh,
right? Because we're not a tall family. So I have to
yeah.
grab a little stool. Honestly, a lot of the times that's enough where I'm like, nope, too
So
much
that's
effort.
it. So my solution to you is just to install a bar up
Higher,
top. And then obviously you can't just do a pull up. You need like a one hand pull up and then a
right?
second hand to grab the snack. So now it's
Or I
like,
mean, here's another low-hanging fruit from a diet perspective is like, and I mean, science says that this works for various other reasons, like perception. But like, if you have a habit of eating like your portions too big,
hmm.
literally get smaller plates.
Yeah, no, that actually works. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie about that. Like,
Because it's like, do you really want to get up again to like get another plate
uh
of?
huh.
It's like, and
Well, I
then if
mean,
you
those are,
do,
I
it's
would love that, by the way. I would love to have a conversation about that, like kind of like tips and tricks on how to actually stay within what your goals are in terms of like nutritional intake, right? I
oh
would have
yeah,
so many tips to share, like what you're
yeah,
saying, splitting it up, just giving yourself time to feel full
oh
and
yeah.
just having the hardship of getting up and getting seconds, is might be
Man,
enough,
this is like some first world problems right there, right?
Yeah.
Like, man, I gotta walk over
I
there.
gotta,
I gotta get a
I gotta do what?
stool.
Yeah, right.
Damn.
Like, oh.
But the other on the flip side, as as not a way to increase the friction for bad habits, but to decrease the friction on good habits. There
Mhm.
is a YouTuber and productivity guy by the name of Thomas Frank. He has a lot of great stuff. He's a big proponent of atomic habits too.
Mhm.
But he had an interesting story about when he's learning like how to play the guitar. So obviously, first step, get a guitar. So got a nice guitar, and they taught him at the store how to like keep it clean and all that. So he bought a case, this and that, kept it tidy in his house because of course a productivity guy is gonna have a good space. The problem though was that he found he never wanted to go grab the guitar, take it out of its case, and then start playing for the day. Even it took like 0 minutes, right? It was less than a minute to do that. But he consistently found that he was just not practicing.
Mhm.
And so instead, he decided he's just not going to put it in the case and leave it out. And what he found was that it was so much easier to just pick up the guitar and practice that he became so much better at at what he was trying to get better at, right? Because I think a lot of us we get lost in these secondary ideas, like for example, uh, taking good care of your nice guitar instead of literally getting better at playing, which was the goal, right? Like his goal wasn't to have a guitar collection of
Mhm.
pristine guitars. It was to get better as an artist. And so, you know, will that thing degrade faster? Maybe. Who knows? I mean, it's not going to accumulate dust because he's using it all the time. So, I think that was like such a fascinating way for someone to identify what was keeping him from his making progress in his goal and removing that piece of friction.
Right. And that requires again a lot of self reflection and taking the time out to actually identify, what exactly is in the
And
way
some
of
and to
of
be fair, there's a little bit of like, you know, um, taking a look at the process like analytically as opposed to just living on the feeling of, oh man, I really wish I had time to play guitar.
Mhm. Basically, don't depend on your motivation because that will waver and come and go. Yeah, just
Yeah,
tying
I
it
mean,
back,
yeah,
tying it
we're
back.
back to that. Yeah, for sure. Right? Because again, you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. And
Mhm.
it's true over and over again because no matter what, like I don't think life ever gets easier. That's a
I
quote
can
somewhere,
tell you
right?
it
Like
does not.
life
Yeah.
doesn't get easier.
Yeah.
You just get better at handling it,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think like now I'm not the most religious of people nowadays, but I think a quote I used to live by was, I don't pray to God to remove the burdens from my shoulders, but rather to give me broader shoulders on which to bear them,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So it's like you're just going to get better at the things that you choose to undertake. Unfortunately, it's a two-way street because you also get better, like due to neuroplasticity, you also get better at the things that aren't so good for you. So
Mhm.
every time you allow yourself to fall to the bad habits, it's not like a failure, but it does reinforce
Mhm.
that bad habit. And so
Right.
the choice of which habits do you reinforce are poignant to the whole progress thing, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's why it's important not to create a rigid structure around this, which lends itself to this idea of accepting incremental change.
Mhm.
And that's the rub about this like habit habit situation, right? It's not sexy. Like it sucks.
That's why I keep saying, it's a lot of like self-reflection, taking the time, and if you already feel like you're super busy, your day's super packed, which is a lot of people,
Sure.
it's sometimes a luxury to take the time out and to be like, what it is, like I'm a big fan of writing your goals down, because at
Yeah.
that point you can revisit it at some point and be like, okay, well, I said I wanted to do this, where am I at, and
Yeah.
it's just a good wake up call to be like, oh, this is 2022 like goals, and yet I'm already halfway there, and I don't think I've like left the starting line. You know what I mean?
To
And
be on that note, though, I'd like to point out that, and this I got from my mentor in the fitness space, Julian Pinot. He had said once, like people often get caught up in fearing what happens if they make a choice and it goes bad.
mhm,
And so they're like, oh, but if I do this, what happens if I fail?
mhm,
Right? Instead of asking, what happens if I succeed? Right? Like, look forward to actually completing your goal, not like, oh, well, if I spend time on this, it's going to go nowhere. No, like, if you really want to, you know, pursue a weight loss goal, get stronger, get more flexible, set yourself up and aim for actually succeeding and not living in, oh, I'm just gonna fail at this again. Oh,
mhm.
I've tried so many diets and they never work. Well, okay, yeah, well, you know
I mean, that's a
let's
self-defeating the motivation already. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
that's failure
It's
before you even start. And
yeah,
again,
it's
we were talking about the new habits for the year. Staying positive. And surrounding yourself with people who are positive, who will continue to egg you on and be like, yeah, you can do this. Participate in joining a group. To kind of support you and have you get there. I think that all of that is very relevant,
Yeah,
right?
I
So.
mean that's where community can really help go a long way with making sure, as in my space, a lot of my clients look to me to provide some level of accountability, and
Mhm.
it's not much on my side. That's not the hard part of the job because, like, the fact that they have to show up usually is enough, and with
Show
them
up
not
or
to,
lose your money, like
yeah,
that's a pretty big motivation factor. I think that really wins the cake, honestly,
yeah,
because I wouldn't
especially
expect you to
considering like,
like make people feel bad, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you didn't lift that today. What a screw up,
to be
probably not
honest,
good for
with my
business.
demographic, like
Hmm.
I think they're apt to punish themselves more than how I would,
Hmm.
right? Like than I would be willing to. And so my job often becomes, how do we move away from those negative feelings of self punishment
Hmm.
and move towards something productive, like looking at, okay, why did you make that decision? Not that was some dumbass shit, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, it's like, okay, let's take a look at the rest of your day. What led up to that decision? right?
Mm-hmm.
Where was the friction point that made that made the alternative so much harder to accomplish, right? When it comes to diet, for example, one of the easier things is if you didn't have your a meal planned in advance, and then all of a sudden you get to that point of, oh, I'm super hungry. You're gonna make bad decisions.
Dude, any
Period.
potato chip is gonna do at that
No,
moment. And
absolutely.
you know
Like
what they
you're
say,
walking by.
Snickers, hungry? Why wait?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
and that's why one of the things I work with my clients on the diet side would be, hey, let's not get you to that point of like hunger. Like
Hmm.
you should be even. This, we're in America. You're not going to be starving. Like, just get to it. Just stay pretty even.
Hmm.
And now of course you might be like, well, how do I? What about the enjoyment of food? Sure. Like I'm a big fan of you know absolutely being part of the experience and enjoying food when it calls for that. Like it was my client's daughter's birthday at some point. I'm
Hmm.
like, or her daughter made her breakfast pancakes because it was her birthday or something. And I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, you eat your daughter's pancakes. The little girl doesn't like.
My macros can't take this.
Yeah,
Sorry.
man. Like,
Sorry,
no,
daughter.
you're gonna eat the thing that your daughter made, right? You don't be like,
Yeah,
what
no.
are these carbs? Get out of here. No, you eat it, right? Or your siblings in town and you haven't seen each other in 3 years because of whatever.
Hmm.
Okay, go and have fun. Enjoy. Like, go do that,
Hmm.
right? Enjoy that experience, and
Because you
that
have
food is
your
part of that
systems to
experience.
fall back on, so it
Yeah,
doesn't matter if you stray a day or two. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because life demands the flexibility, you know?
right.
But then ultimately, you can always refer back to the system that you yourself has set up,
Yeah,
and that works for you, and then be able to succeed in that way.
yeah. Like I can't think of the proper attribution for this, but there was a saying that like the errant cupcake will make you just as fat as the random salad will make you healthy, right? It's not you get one
That's
salad in a
true.
week.
Yeah.
I think your digestion might not be the best.
Hmm.
So you fix that up, right? Like,
Well, yeah, that's
um,
the power of consistency, right?
yeah,
A good
yeah. Like
habit or bad habit, right? So.
yeah, if it's the good habit that you're getting regular vegetables and like a wide balanced meal, whatever, or
Hmm.
whatever meal type makes the most sense for your goal set, you mess up once, like it's not as gonna do anything. Like literally the morning of my my first bodybuilding competition, I'm sure the pros would be like, this is an absolute crazy thing to do. But I was at Cracker Barrel like that morning for breakfast, eating like a giant plate of food. So when
Hmm.
the judges saw me step on stage, they're like, oh, your presence, your smile, you look so happy. I was like, yeah, because I'm the only one here that ate anything.
You had that secret sauce, literally.
Yeah, but at that point, like my nutrition leading up to there was fine. I was at that point like it's too late for a mistake to have. At that
You're
unless
not
it
gonna
turns.
gain that weight right then and
Right.
there, you know.
Yeah, whatever. It's
But
only
you'll
gonna
sure
get a
gain that energy, you know.
yeah, no, like exactly. That was actually part of my planning. And
Hmm.
to that note, I did approach that bodybuilding competition from the perspective of like, how can I get there in the most client applicable way I can, right? Because I don't train other bodybuilders. That's not like my bread and butter. Um, so it becomes okay. Like, how do I get as lean in a healthy way as possible? That's the approach that I took when I competed in bodybuilding. Um, but yeah, so you know, like I think if you try to create this really narrow band of success or failure, you're likely just going to keep hitting fail points, and that can be really discouraging. For now, I'm sure there are examples of people that can just bulldoze their way through, but you know, I'm not. Those are exceptions to the rule rather than the general. Um, so that's why like I'm really harping on this idea of like creating the system. And the other beauty of this is that as you develop what the system is supposed to look like, if you get to the if you get to a mile marker and you realize you're not on track for your expectations, at least you can take a look back at what habits helped get you there, and then you can tweak accordingly. Because, like, let's say your plan was, uh, I want to be able to deadlift 400 pounds, and part of that was creating a habit of every other day you're gonna do, you know, in a high intensity, or rather, very close to your one rep max in practice. And then when you look back at your logs, if you see that you were missing workouts, I mean, it would make sense that you didn't hit target, right? Like, that's just, or if part of your habit building around that was a known need for sleep, right? Adequate sleep,
Mm-hmm.
because recovery is integral to strength development. And then every night you're getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and that's not sufficient for you. Well, at least now you can tweak your what you need to do a little bit harder, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can go, oh, why couldn't I get sleep? Because if you never create these habits and systems, there's nothing to analyze. There's no way for you to iterate better off of what you developed.
Right. Well, you didn't even spend the time to set up, shop. So, but you're basically saying that once you have the house of cards up, if something fails, you can at least go ahead and run a diagnostic.
Sure.
This whole conversation, I've been harping on that self-awareness and the fact that you actually have to be self-aware and you actually have to go back and take a look at what you've done, right? You're basically saying that by having these systems, it kind of creates an easier way, like an easier framework where you can look back and actually start tweaking and start, basically editing what you need in order to basically reach your goals, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, back to my mentor when he talked about playing billiards, right? If you can do a random shot, but like, and if you get a ball in, okay, but did you learn anything?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not, unless you actually get set up, right? Create the right environment for you to hit a good shot in, and then you act. Now, if the ball goes in and it's according to the plan, great, good.
Mm-hmm.
You learn something by virtue of the plan working. But if you miss, then you get an opportunity to look back on, like, what went wrong with the setup there. Like, I
Right.
did this, I did this, I did this. Oh, I see. I didn't line up the way I was supposed to line up, right? Okay, cool. And that's why you missed your shot. And the same thing happened, that analogy really transcends the billiard table and goes into, like, how do you learn Chinese, right? Like, are you actually having, like, for example, a habit around language learning might really be trying to get in hours of speaking with someone that's fluent in the language already, right? Um, Whether that's with a tutor or part of a learning group or something like that, right? You should have some level of hours. Like, when I studied in China, that was part of our curriculum, right? Where we just had to just talk to people. And so if you're not progressing as fast as you want, like, take a look back at your plan. Like, are you doing that? Or are you meeting up with your language learning partners and just speaking in English the whole time?
Enjoying your coffee and not much else. Right.
Right.
No, I,
Yeah.
I I think that all makes sense, in terms of that. So I guess the big takeaway really is to, take the moment, take the time to look at your goals and to basically, because I think that we're using the word systems, confuses some people and kind of like, but really it's just about, making that plan, that we alluded to, right? We're basically adding layers over previous conversations.
Yeah. I
So
mean, the
making
plan is important, but, like, this idea of being able to iterate off of it is
Mhm.
another part of this habit building
But
process,
that's what
right?
makes it the system, is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you can edit that, yeah. So,
Like, improving quality of life stuff. Like,
mhm,
while my snacks are harder to reach, they are better for, like, maintaining a physique.
mhm. Risk versus reward,
I know, right?
So.
This
But
is
but
fun.
yeah, but at the end of the day, it's just I guess it's an open request for everybody listening to actually take that time, for yourself, because I know that can be very difficult at times, Is there how about you personally, like do you often like how often do you take a look under the hood, uh, when it comes to things like this for obviously not just for fitness goals, but just in all goals in general, do you have like a guide? Do you have like a time frame, or is it just, whenever you fail, you take a look?
I think I'm notorious for constantly trying to tweak and improve on things, which you know is challenging in of itself because, of course, like some things just take time,
Hmm.
right? Like even just fitness is the easier thing in this regard because you know at my stage of exercise, programming becomes that much more important because it's unlikely that I can benefit from a given workout. And
Yeah.
so like any one workout is unlikely to actually force me
Hmm.
to positively adapt,
Yeah,
right?
because you already got to that
So
level. It's not like
right,
any
like
basic workout would work.
well, in my case, it's like there's an accumulation of stresses required to push for change,
Hmm.
and so if you're a seasoned athlete, like that might take a month. Like it could possibly take me a month worth of stress to put 5 pounds, 10 pounds on my squat,
Oh yeah, I mean
right?
diminishing returns, so.
Yeah, exactly, right.
But yeah.
Um, so it
So
could take
sorry,
a
I was distracting you. You were talking
this.
about the
So yeah, so
how
like
often you look.
it could take that long, but then I quickly have to shift. Like as a business owner, it becomes okay, where do I actually need to prioritize in order to move the company forward, right?
Hmm.
And so, or then if in the event that like something's happening on the home front, right, like all of a sudden the wife needs me to prioritize something for the household,
Hmm.
okay, then I have to shift everything around. And in the meantime, behind all of that is like, okay, where do my habits fit? Like, what are the things that I'm doing now that are either supporting or detracting from the priority set? And if I find that the habit set is helping, then I really just try to push it in. Like recently, I started building in a habit of a morning journaling practice of
Hmm.
sorts.
Hmm.
It's less of a soft thoughts and feelings thing, but it's more like, I might have a calendar full of stuff. I have a to-do list that's full, but I will take time in the morning to write into my iPad, here are my scheduled events for today. It's on my calendar. Like I'm literally looking at my calendar. And I'm writing it in my own handwriting because that gives me some semblance of understanding for what my day is going to be, and it helps me manage my energy a little bit better.
Hmm.
And then when I have it written out for me in the morning, as things need to change, then I can like write notes right into it. And for me
Yeah.
that's been so useful, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is a habit I need to do. Now it's like, if I don't get a chance to do it, I'm like, it sucks because I'm like, oh crap, like
I don't know what to do. Yeah.
yeah,
Just so you know, I have the exact same habit, So I have a document
yeah,
that's listed like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and
uh,
I don't care if I don't do it all, right? Like that's not the
yeah,
point of the exercise, right?
right.
Like,
Oh yeah,
but just, at
I
the
think
start of
I
every day, I'm
often
always like, well, here's what I need to do today. Oh, I didn't do that from the other day, let's put that up there,
yeah,
and you
yeah, on
try
my
your best.
task list that I write out, I'm always like, will I get to that?
Yeah.
Depends
So
on.
so to kind of like take what you've said, so it sounds to me that you're not giving a specific time frame to do a review as much as you're saying that life changes constantly. It's a flux. And then you just really have to make a decision to look at your priorities every once in a while and kind of
Yeah,
decide which you keep and which you need to let go of,
yeah,
right? And that's
because
happened to me
like
before, where I
when
decide,
at the
halfway to let go of a goal. You know what I mean?
yeah, at the beginning of the year, there was talk within the Discord chat of like, oh hey, like what goals do you have? In my head I'm like, oh, it's the same goals as I had when I first opened the gym.
Yeah.
It's I have to push for growth for the gym, right?
Hmm.
And like new ideas come my way, and as a business owner I have to be flexible enough to go, okay, this is a better use of my time.
Hmm.
All right. I mean, like for example, this streaming situation, right? It's like it's not easy, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the amount of time I put into prepping for this too, because I'm not a natural. I mean, some people would think I'm a natural speaker, but like in reality, it's not. I'm
Yeah, I think he's a
not.
natural. So.
It's I do a lot of prep work in the background. Even when it comes to the sessions that I conduct with my clients,
Mhm.
I will spend time prepping for that to make sure that I have an idea of what my talking points are for the session that are, on the technical side. Of course, like they might start talking about their life or something that's completely separate. But in terms of what I want them to achieve during the session, like I'm prepping for that beforehand, like my talking points and things like that. So that's one of my professional habits is that I give my is that prior to my sessions, assuming that I actually have the time to do it, I will try to go through the protocol for the day and make sure to get all that right. If I don't have time beforehand, then I have to do it as close as possible to beforehand.
Right.
That's the professional. And I did the same thing when I was presenting in corporate back in the day. Like I'd be running through my presentations, and some people, that's not, that I think for you and me, that might sound like a no duh. Like obviously you should prep for your meetings, but
Yeah.
I think we also
I
know
mean,
that
that's
people
the thing.
don't
That's the
do
sad
that.
part. Like, what's important about this conversation, especially in all the wellness conversations that we're having, because I'm guilty of this, right? A lot of people in general, they just look at these things and they're like, oh, yeah, they read one sentence, right? Like, oh, yeah, consistency, good habits. I got it. You know what I mean? Like, let's go. Like, let's move on, and they're gonna miss the conversation about the systems. They're gonna miss the conversation about the benefits of it to be able to go and edit it, because they just take that one liner and then they jump with that, and I think that that's very normal. But it's always important to sit down and be like, hey, these habits really helped me out. Like you're talking about journaling, like I'm
That's
telling you I
funny
do the
that
exact same thing. And that's the whole thing. Like that's helped me out in my life for so long now, but how many people out there like aren't aware of this this habit that is useful, or I hear about habits all the time, and I just and you can't do it all, like
right.
another a community member of ours, he's always like, oh yeah, meditation is like that's what you need, like that's going to focus you
He's not wrong.
every day. Yeah, I read so much about it, so I can agree with that, but I can never get myself to spend the 10 minutes to just sit down
Oh
and do
god,
meditation in
it's
the morning.
incredibly hard.
Yeah,
It's
so
it's
for
on my
me,
habitica. It's
yeah. Well, in my opinion, right, I would like to say that my journaling time is my meditation time, right? Like
it's
that's the
close to
same
it.
thing. I find my center, like I go, this is the way I'm going to start my day. I get myself an idea of what that day is going to look like, exactly what you said. And I think that's really like, it is not meditation, but in a way it kind of is, because that's the purpose of meditation, isn't it? Really to find yourself, to find awareness, to be mindful
There's a
of
few
your
different
time,
ways to do it. So absolutely, I
Yeah.
think that falls within the purview of what meditation is. In my case, I try to take a very breathing focused approach to it, where there's a lot of breath control and like I literally turn on a metronome and go breath
Taking it
counting.
really serious, But
I
anyway, but the whole point really is to say that, like, yeah, a lot of these things are obvious, until they're not, until like you've heard it like the first time, you're like, I wonder if there's anybody in the audience like journaling, WTF, and who knows, like we can make that
that
change.
is actually one of the hopes that I had for this because
Mhm.
frankly, like you can hear a thing a billion times, but then when you hear it from the right person at the right time, that's
Mhm.
what changes lives.
Well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't help. Like sometimes hearing it from like Tim Ferriss, isn't really helpful for me. Like you're already rich, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're
Like
already
you're
hyper
here telling me
productive.
I can do
Like,
this. Like,
what
yeah,
are you on
sure,
mushrooms right now? Like,
Yeah,
I can't do any of that.
yeah. But then to have like regular people, come and be like, yeah, this has been really helpful. Like it's worth way more to me than some blogger. Like having one of my
And
community members
to be
talk about the
fair, we're
benefit.
not perfect about this stuff either, right? Like,
Yeah,
I
no,
am by
absolutely
no
not.
means. I mean, the fact that I had to get my wife to put the Cheez-Its further away from me, I think, is telling of my self
We're all
control.
fallible. Yeah, no, like yeah, because we all know best practices, but when it comes down to actually doing them, like that, there's a reason why it's best practice. Otherwise, it'd just be normal practice, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
it's best practice not to eat after whatever, right? But
Yeah.
it'd just be normal to not even worry about that.
Yeah. All
Anyway,
right.
did we cover everything
I believe
on your end?
so.
That's
I think the only last example that I had written down to like kind of bring up was the idea that, you know, when it comes to work, a lot of us do this stuff already and like without realizing it, right? Like you go into work not excited. I mean, maybe there are some people, but I,
Yeah.
working as an accountant for sure, I was not like going into work like, yeah, debits and credits,
Talented. Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
taxes, right? That was far and few between where I was excited to go into work.
Yeah. He was
But
only motivated once every 2 weeks.
yeah, right. It's like whenever my bank account went up. But to be fair, right? Like you go in, regardless of motivation, you go do what you need to get done. And then after years of this, honestly, I mean, my experience was I look back and I was like, oh, I'm a subject matter expert on something. I've achieved
Mhm.
mastery in, whatever the thing I got, whatever I was doing all the time. And that's kind of the point and the the goal in of itself of setting up the habits is like,
Mhm.
hey, if you're gonna do this a whole bunch, like as long as you're patient with it and are willing to just keep trying to iterate in a positive direction what those habits are, before you know it, it becomes a, oh, wow, take a look at this cool stuff that I can do now,
Mhm.
right? Like I was not athletic growing up, so it's kind of funny to me now that like, you know, people see some of the things they do, and I'm like, whoa, like, huh? Oh, and I don't even notice it anymore, right? Like, where I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh, whatever. But
It's just
like,
what I can do. I can
it's
pick this
fun.
up.
Yeah, this is how I live. It's fine, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and so, but yeah, like, there's a lot of just this middle ground of stuff not happening, and so those times when you do achieve the thing, that's the thing that you really want to hold on to, right? The
Mhm.
enjoy those experiences, right? Relish in the victories, right? Don't get caught up in the mundanity of what the habits are, right? That's not the place for that. Like, you don't expect to just like love your dailies, right? It's just a thing that you do, and then you turn around at some point and go, "Oh, wow, fantastic! Like wow, I didn't even realize how much I grew,"
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because you're not going to notice it day to day anyway, right?
Yeah,
That's
not
like,
supposed to.
yeah, it's too gradual of a change, and that's I think why I wanted, I had brought up this idea that incremental change is so powerful. Not only
Mhm.
does it create this foundation that's more solid, because the slower, now of course this is on balance, right? You can't grow infinitely slow for an infinitely strong foundation.
Yeah.
Like
I'll get to
it's a
my diet
balance.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that would be appreciated. Though I took your nutrition log off for this week, so you can
No, I'm just saying, like, yeah, tomorrow we'll
get your other
eventually get
stuff
there
sorted out.
incrementally.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's why I also try to push for the smaller the change, the better, as long as it's within a tolerable range. One of the reasons we ask if our clients have a working timeline is then we can, either constrain or expand the expectations.
Mhm.
Because if someone doesn't have a timeline to lose weight, but that's their major concern, okay, then we can, at least we can take the time to cut out 10% calorie. Like, we can go through the process of, hey, what can we remove from your diet? Or how can we add more activity into your life on a regular basis?
Mhm.
Hey, how do we improve your sleep quality? But
Makes
if
it
like,
easier to do the lifestyle changes, basically.
yeah.
Mm.
Whereas if you're like, I have a wedding in 2 months,
Yeah.
all right,
No
well,
time
here's
for
your
lifestyle
reasonable
changes.
expectations. Like, I'm not gonna sell you a bag of beans here. It's like, okay, what's healthy to lose every week is like 1 to 2%
Mm.
weight, and you have 8 weeks. So, you
Yeah.
know,
Get to
if
it.
that's
Do
if
the
that's an
action.
acceptable amount of weight for you, cool. If it's not, trying to be more aggressive is going to be a real challenge. So you let me
Mhm.
know how willing you are to go down those challenging roads, right?
Right.
Like you have to be on top of your workouts. You have to be on top of your sleep.
Right. Well,
Like
I
you
just
have
want to get
a
back
lot.
to what you were saying earlier about,
Mhm.
just having work, you do this like so naturally, you just slowly become a subject matter expert. It's just that was you just proving that consistency gets the final like
Yeah,
win, right?
and it's funny because we're willing to do it without thinking for work, but when it comes to
I
self
mean, we're being paid
improvement,
for it, so
I mean, sure, and like there's this
yeah.
idea that you kind of have to,
Hmm.
but that same level of effort can be applied to your personal goals and your personal development. It's not just for the sake of your employer. Now, obviously, in our cases, we're our own employers, but
Yeah, I work myself pretty hard, you know.
yeah.
Do you happen to know how many days it takes to form a habit? I think there was like a
I mean,
number
the
in
talking
there.
point is around like honestly, I think it's like 6 weeks, um, which
Yeah.
it feels long, but to be fair, yeah, you really do need to stick to it, right?
Mm,
Like it's gonna take time, and you need enough of those failure points to understand what the friction is that's preventing you from success. I mean, hell, if you nail it on the head right out the gate, fantastic, good for
yeah, but
you.
do you know? There's
It's
definitely a few
usually not the
roadblocks.
case,
Yeah.
right? Like, because people will come out. I mean, I think guys, particular, are notorious for this. They'll come out like real aggressive on what the goal set is, and go,
Mm,
"I'm gonna, I'm gonna do a
six
hundred
times a week.
push-ups every day."
Mm,
Like, whereas, I mean, there are people out there that are gonna be able to do it, and they're gonna look at the people that can't do it like, well, it just takes willpower, just just some grit. And it's like, no, like if like something that could get in the way of that, for example, is like literally like the person doesn't have a clean floor. And they're like,
mm,
oh, this is I don't wanna go down to the floor.
mm.
That's it. Okay, how do we fix that? Well, let's set a schedule for cleaning the floor on a regular basis.
Right. But if they don't try to set up that system, they'll never
Yeah,
do
what
it.
are you doing? You just
Yeah.
never like you literally never come down onto the floor, right?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, that
is
works.
an amusing, frankly, a bit one of the more amusing sides of like what stops people from working out.
Right.
Literally, a lot of people just have an aversion to the floor. They don't want to work out with their shoes off, and that adds that layer of like, oh, I'm at home, but I have to put my shoes on, and then my shoe like, oh, I don't want to put the shoes on the couch or all that kind of stuff. So
Right. But you really won't know your stopping points until you actually go and do it, which is the main
yeah,
thing.
and then see what you can change, right?
Yeah.
Because let's say you can't clean your floor for whatever reason, like I don't know, you have a baby that's like, or you have pets or something like that, and
Mhm.
like your dog just pees on the floor regularly, then we have a different problem there. I think I know a good dog trainer.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, all right. So I don't
Anyway,
want to push this conversation too long, but I want to be respectful of your time, you know? I think we covered everything, right? That
yeah,
you had that you wanted to discuss.
yeah,
That's perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out. We really appreciate it. We're
absolute
reaching
pleasure.
our time now, but I just still want to say thank you for making the time out to come through. And then obviously I hope that you're following too, as a community member. But of course, you will be back on again sometime, hopefully next week, and we
Yeah,
can
sometime next week.
discuss the next. I think we have like two more episodes left for our five series run. So
Yeah.
really looking forward to that, and I appreciate you stopping by.
All right.
All right, thank you so much, Enrico. I'll see you
Bye,
next time.
guys.
Yeah. And so yeah, and with that, that's our session for today. Thank you guys for watching. We will be back, and next one we are going to cover the remainder of the crypto series that we were running, and I'm going to talk a little bit about yield farming and about all the different ways that you can possibly take your fiat money and maybe earn a little bit of extra on the side. Well, until next time, see you guys later. Have a good night. We hope you've enjoyed this session in Happyland. If you're interested in becoming a part of our community, head out to our website, happylandgummybears.com, to learn more. See you next time Happyland is in session. It's hibernation time for this gummy bear. All right.
Yo.
So that was that show. I thought that went pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, I thought you were gonna feel like a little